Welcome back, everyone, to Math Videos with Eldred. Today we have before us some Wii U controllers. We have lovely pink, Princess Edition, black and white. Just saying, if you haven't played any Wii games, maybe take a gander. It's a good use of your time. Now we're starting a new unit in Chapter 4, but it's still all about lines. So lines are still the name of the game. 4.1 is called writing equations in slope-intercept form. So the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, what is slope-intercept form? You all know it. It's our favorite equation of a line. Y equals mx plus b. And we have talked extensively about what these components mean in terms of a line. Y is our output. We've talked about that when we talked about range. Y is our set of output values. Y is also the dependent variable. Y depends on x. We pick an x, we get out a y. This m value, m, we've already talked about, stands for slope. Because clearly there is an m in the word slope. No, there is not. But mathematicians need a shorthand for everything. So, m stands for slope. Slope is the rate of change. So slope is the part that is changing. Okay? Slope is rise over run. It is rate of change. It is directions for how to graph your line. It is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Those are all pieces to slope. Now the x is your input. The x is the independent variable, the thing that usually time is a good independent variable. Okay, whatever time it is, the y value, the output, depends on what time it is. X is our input. And last but not least, we have b. And b stands for the y-intercept. So these are all pieces of a line. The y-intercept is a point, 0, b. Okay, we also call it our starting value or our initial value. Okay, like usually when we talk about input, it's time. So if we start at time 0, that would be our starting value or our initial value. So the B stands for y-intercept, starting value, or initial value. It's really important to understand the components of this equation before we can actually start answering questions. Now, the first example, we are given that the slope is 3/2 and the y-intercept is -3. Our directions are to write the equation of the line. Now, slope-intercept form is the title of this lesson, but it is also our favorite equation of a line because of the components. Because it has this slope, this change component, and the y-intercept, which is the starting value component. So whenever you see those directions, write the equation of the line. Write the equation of a line. I want your mind to immediately go to y equals mx plus b. Okay, when you see that on a test, or a quiz, please, your brain should immediately say, write the equation of a line, y equals mx plus b. This is our baseboard. This is our form that we need to fill in to write the equation. So the only things we need in order to write the equation are the m and the b. Now in this case, this is not so hard. The slope was given to us 3/2. And what letter stands for slope? M. So we're already given in the problem that m equals 3/2, which is awesome. We already have the m component of our line. We only need m and b and we're done. X and y are letters, always in an equation. And then b and m are numbers, our specific values. So we know our m is 3/2. We were given that in the problem. We were also given that the y-intercept is -3. And it just so happens that the y-intercept is our b value. So b is -3. Therefore, we actually don't have to do any work on this problem. We just have to write down our final answer. Copying this equation exactly, y equals, we're going to replace the m with the number that we know m equals, which is 3/2. y equals mx, please don't forget your x. Students forget x all the time. He feels very lonely. Plus b. Now, currently our b is negative, so you can just write minus 3. That plus is just a placeholder. It could be plus or minus, depending on what the b value is. And that is the equation of the line. Y equals 3/2 x minus 3. That is the equation if we're just given the slope and the intercept, y-intercept flat out, which is sometimes the case. Example 2 shows a different situation. The directions are unchanged though. We are still asked to find the equation of the line. So you hear those words, equation of the line, your brain immediately is thinking y equals mx plus b. Bam, wrote it down. All we need to do is find out what m is and what b is. Now we know m stands for the slope. And we talked about before that slope is rise over run. That's going to be our most useful form for a graph. Now we're in America, so we start left to right, start with the leftmost point. We're going to rise over run. So in this case, we're going to rise right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're rising 6 values. That's positive because we're going uphill left to right. And then we're going to run over to this other point that I can very clearly see, which is at 1, 2, 3, 4. Pardon me. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've rose 6, we ran 4. Since m is rise over run, 6 over 4, which reduces, 2 goes into both of those numbers to 3/2. So our m is 3/2 for this problem. That's one component we need to write the equation of a line. The other component we need is our b, which is our y-intercept. The y-intercept we can also see clearly from the graph is going to be the place where the line crosses the y-axis. So I'm just going to scan down this y-axis right here. Oh, bam, right here. That's the point right there where it crosses the y-axis, and that looks like it's at -3. So the b is -3. Now we have the two pieces that we need. We know m, based on the rise over run, is 3/2. We know b is -3 because of this point right here. It is at -3 on the y-axis. So we can plug those in. We can write our equation of the line. Again, I'm copying straight from our slope-intercept form. Copying y equals, we do not change those to numbers. Our final answer should have y as a letter. M, we now know is 3/2. Copy x, do not forget about lonely little x. Plus b, in this case our b is negative, so it's a -3. Y equals 3/2 x minus 3. So we've been given the slope and the y-intercept. That one's easy, we just plugged those in. We were given a line on a graph. Not so bad, we can find the slope, rise over run, and we can identify the y-intercept, where that line crosses the y-axis. Now we're going to try writing the equation of a line through the points 0, -3 and 4, 3. What do you think is the key part of these directions? Yes, I see it too. Write the equation of the line. As soon as your brain reads that, the equation of the line, you immediately write down y equals mx plus b. Okay, that's our form. That means we need to find two things. We need to find m and we need to find b in order to have our final answer. Now what we're given this time is 2 points. So what seems easier, to find the slope first or the y-intercept first? It depends. In this case, we know how to find the slope between 2 points. So let's start there. The slope given 2 points, 0, -3 and 4, 3, is given by the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That is our slope formula. So given 2 points, we can use this formula to find the slope. It doesn't matter what order you do it, but I'm going to label my first point x1, y1, my second point x2, y2, with little subscripts just identifying that this is point number 1 and this is point number 2. So then I can plug those in parentheses. y2 is 3. minus y1 is negative 3. Your parentheses are crucial here so that you don't lose any minus signs. x2 happens to be 4, minus x1 is 0. So now we have to deal with that double negative. Double negative turns into a positive, so 3 plus 3 over 4 minus 0 is 4. 3 plus 3 is 6 over 4. And that reduces, they're both divisible by 2, so we get 3 halves. So our slope here is 3 halves. Now our second job is to identify the y-intercept. We've got our m, we need to find our b. Now, this problem, conveniently, one of these 2 points is actually the y-intercept. Can you tell which one? Remember, the y-intercept, our b value is 0, comma b. Do you see a point that's 0, comma some number? Yep, so do I. It's right here. 0, comma negative 3. So it turns out our b is equal to negative 3. We just need to identify a point that has x as 0, which is actually right here, given in the problem. So that's awesome. We don't even have to do any solving. We've got it. b equals negative 3. Once we have our m and b, we just copy our form. Remember, x and y need to be letters. So I start with y equals. I fill in my number for m, which we got was 3 halves. I write the x as a letter. Don't forget about lonely little x. And then plus b, which in this case is negative, so it's going to be a negative 3. So y equals 3 halves x minus 3. Awesome. So we found the slope from the, we found this equation of the line from the slope and y-intercept. We found the equation of a line from a graph. We found the equation of a line through 2 points. When we're given the y-intercept, next example, we're going to find the equation of a line with the slope of 3 halves through the point 2, comma 0. Again, did you hear the keywords? Write the equation of the line. Awesome. Immediately, you're already writing this down. Probably you're ahead of me. Y equals mx plus b. As soon as we see that equation of a line, we're thinking y equals mx plus b. That means we only need to find 2 things, the m and the b. Turns out our given information is the slope of 3 halves. What letter stands for slope? Yes, indeed, that is m. So m equals slope, which we already know given in the problem is 3 halves. Bam, we've got m. Now all we need is b. B is a little bit harder to find though, because you see the problem here. This is not a y-intercept. It's not 0, comma a number. So we're kind of in trouble. We don't have a b value that we're given. But what letters are associated with this point right here, this 2, comma 0? X, comma y. So we're actually given an x and a y here. So if we look at our general form, we have a y and an x given in the point, y and x, and we have an m. So what we're going to do is we're going to solve for b. Okay? We are going to plug in our y, which is 0, into this general formula. We're going to plug in our m, which we already know is 3 halves. Then we're going to plug in our x, which we know from this point is 2, plus b. So if you're not given the b right off the bat, we need to solve for it. Now here we're multiplying 2 fractions, so we need to put the second number over 1, and we need to multiply straight across. So 0 equals 3 times 2 is 6, over 2 times 1 is 2. And then I'll just copy the plus b. Now I know what 6 divided by 2 is, that equals 3. Plus b. So close, got to get that b by itself. We're going to subtract 3 from both sides. So negative 3 equals b. Now we've solved for our 2 pieces. We know what m is, we know what b is, so I'm going to fill in this form. Now notice I'm not putting in this point again for x and y. I'm actually using the letters. Y equals 3 halves x minus 3. You're going to have to go on to the next video now.